Welcome guys to this video. I'm going to show you guys how to modify a form action in Drupal for a super specific scenario. If you are coming to this video for this purpose, I'm stoked you're here because there's no information about how to do this online. I'll tell you how I found this and the solution. If you're a typical subscriber to the channel and you're expecting DUDA videos here, I'm changing it up a little bit and talking about Drupal, another favorite platform of mine, but for very specific use cases. So in a previous video, I talked about using Cloudflare to basically take a subdomain and serve it as a subdirectory. So if you have blog.example.com, we're going to make that blog serve at example.com/blog. And the reason for doing this is for SEO. You've built up your domain very nicely. Putting something on the subdomain won't have the same impact as if you put it on a subdirectory. But in our case here, we have a requirement where we need to use two different platforms. So on mine, I'm going to show you how I'm using a WordPress site, but on certain URLs, I'm loading my Drupal site in there. And the limitation I discussed in the last video was that you can't submit forms to the website. You can only get stuff from the server. You can't make post requests. And I've found a way. Well, first of all, the need for submitting forms arose recently, and now I've found a way to submit the forms. I'll show you a couple different ways to do it, and from the easiest to the hardest way, and the hardest way is not very difficult. So let's jump into it. All right, just so you can see what I'm working with here, I'm on attorneyatlawmagazine.com/form test. Now, attorneyatlawmagazine.com is a WordPress site, but when you go to this URL, it's actually loading my Drupal site behind the scenes, and to the front end user, you would have no idea. I mean, you can tell the menus are a little bit different, but it's very fluid. So anyways, what's happening is behind the scenes, we're loading this URL. And when we try to submit a form, if we look at the form action, if you're not familiar with form actions, it's basically the URL the form submission will submit to. And in Drupal, it's going to be a relative URL, so it's /form test. But this domain does not know how to handle this form submission because this form submission is coming from a different application. So my initial goal was to create an absolute URL in the action. That way it knows how to submit to the right application and then have that redirect back to the correct page. So the user doesn't really see that this is going to our other app. Not that it would matter to them, but we just want like a fluid user experience. So first of all, the best way to do this is to just embed a form. And if you're using Drupal, they have in the web form module, they have a share feature, so you can share and embed it via JavaScript or an iframe, and that way it'll submit back to the other application, no problem at all. In my case, I have a very, very unique setup where I need the node's information attached to the form because we dynamically send out emails to whoever is featured on our pages. So, you know, if Joe's on this page, I need the email to go to Joe. If John's on the other page, I need the email to go to him. So embedding a form wouldn't work for me, although it does have some node information. I haven't explored that completely. So let's talk about changing the form action so it actually hits our Drupal application and it's tied to the same node that it's getting submitted on. So I'm going to jump over to my code here and show you the wrong way to do it first. This is the way I tried, and this was by doing a hook form alter and then modifying the form action here. It's only this line that matters. The other code deals with other stuff, but we're basically modifying the form action and we're saying take the existing form action and append the HTTP and then your domain name to it so it makes an absolute URL. And I'll just show you guys why this doesn't work and why you might think it's going to work. But if I save this, and I'm going to go back over to the origin URL because the other one will stay cached until I clear the cache. So just for demo purposes, we're going to inspect the form action and we're going to see that it properly adds the full URL to it. So even if I was on the proxy site, it would still use the origin URL in the form action. But the problem is when I submit this form, nothing happens. And so we're doing this too early on in the form rendering process. And I'll show you guys here what the form action is before we're modifying it. And I'm not exactly familiar with the form rendering process, but you'll be able to see kind of what I've found here. And that is there's this form action underscore and some sort of token. And so I read something about this being dynamically replaced later on. And by us modifying the action this early on in the form rendering process, it makes this form not submittable. So I was kind of at a loss here, and I worked with Jay Rockwitz, the web form module creator. It was super cool to be able to work with him. I consider myself very good at Drupal. I try to think of like, where am I at within everybody? Probably the top 5%. Jacob is like one of the best developers in Drupal. He's probably in the top 0.01% of people with as far as experience within Drupal. So it was really cool to work with him. He was super helpful, and we are using web form, so it was a very fitting reason to reach out to him, and he was super helpful. And here's what we came up with. So basically, we were using the same code that we were putting in the form alter, but we did it in the hook pre-process web form. So this happened, I guess, a little bit later in the rendering process. And instead of, we use the same value as getting set here, but we use variables, and then we dive into attributes and action to get to the form action. And now when we save this, this is going to be the code. I'll throw this in the description. And we refresh this. We're going to still see that absolute form URL, but it's going to actually submit this time. So there it is. And then let's actually do it from the form proxy, just so we can get the complete solution demoed in this video. So we'll flush cache. For whatever reason, the proxy doesn't pick up cache clears. I need to, or automatic, I need to look into that. So now we go to send message. We're going to look at the form action. And here we've got the absolute URL. So you can tell we're on attorneyatlawmagazine.com, but the form action is submitting to the true origin Drupal URL. And now when I fill this out, all right, I had to enable the devel module, so emails aren't actually sent out right now. Let's see what happens here. So it's submitted. It quickly went to that URL. It came back here. I don't have confirmation messages set up yet. I haven't looked into that piece. I don't think that when it's being proxied, it's pulling from the message queue properly. So I need to look at that. I might put like just a query parameter at the end of the URL or something like that. Or in your case, mine's very unique. I needed to go back to a page where I can track where the form submission happened to send it to Google Analytics. You could just send it to a confirmation URL and be good to go there. So just make sure that your submission URLs are, back to your domain that's getting like masked, so that the WordPress site or whatever that is. And then just to show you, and we can see here's the submission that just came in. I'm filming this. I'm confirming the date. So this is when I submitted it, so we know that it posted to my actual origin URL. So that's the complete solution. If you guys were looking how to do this, found this video, let me know that it helped you. There's probably like one person out there that's also doing this. So I'd be surprised to see if how many other people are actually finding this helpful. But I appreciate you guys watching. Also, this is, thanks to Jacob, Jay Rockwitz, as he's known online. Really appreciate his help. And thanks again, guys, for watching until the end. I appreciate you, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.